Our next guest hails from Silicon Valley, and it's actually quite hard for me to tell what he has been doing because he's been doing so much for so many years. So Bill Reichert, he used to be a serial entrepreneur, so has run many companies, now turned into an investor, and currently running Garage Technology Ventures. And telling about, he's actually here first time in Estonia, so you have to impress him. And his topic is exactly that. So how to impress and how to wow investors in Silicon Valley or all around. So Bill, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, is this the thing? Okay. Hey, good afternoon. And first of all, I just want to thank the folks at Latitude59 for inviting me here today. And I want to thank, I guess, all of Estonia for showing up. Is that about right? So, this is an extraordinary turnout. And so it's an acknowledgement both to the Latitude59 guys and to what's going on here. So I'm just really excited to be here. This is my first time here in Estonia. And so it's been a great visit for me. So my objective in the next 16 minutes and 34 seconds is to get all of you to change the way you think about communicating. Change the way you think about communicating. I call it getting to wow. And this comes from my experience having been a serial entrepreneur, having done lots and lots and lots of pitches, both to investors as well as to customers, and then turning into a VC and hearing lots and lots and lots of pitches, and realizing that we as a community in the venture ecosystem, we've done a lot of damage to entrepreneurs by teaching them the wrong thing. Now, you know, it was all well-intentioned, right? So over the last decades, we've created these pitch coach models of, you know, elevator pitches and investor pitches and sales pitches. We've created all these models to try to help entrepreneurs, but in the end, somehow we've taken all the blood out of what entrepreneurs are trying to communicate. And so what I want to do today is talk a little bit about what I call getting to wow, how to craft a compelling summary of your value proposition. So what we've done as a community is we've taught all you entrepreneurs to develop an elevator pitch, right? And so all of you have, you know, a 2-minute version, a 3-minute version, a 5-minute version, and a 10-minute version, right? And, you know, everybody's got a template, and you fill in your 2 minutes or 5 minutes. But your reality is you have 20 seconds to say something compelling, or you might as well go home. That's your reality in most of your communications. When you think about it, what is the good of an elevator pitch? When do you use an elevator pitch? The only time you use an elevator pitch is in an elevator pitch competition, right? You cannot use your elevator pitch in real life in a normal situation. You can't walk up to somebody in this conference and say, hey, and then talk at them for 3 minutes, right? You can't do that. You've got 20 seconds to get their heart beating faster, or you might as well go home. So it turns out, after spending a lot of time trying to figure out what the trick is to getting to wow, it turns out the trick takes you back to Human Anatomy 101. Where am I going with this? What we know is that an effective communicator engages 3 body parts. So, of course, you've got to talk to the head, right? So what you say has got to be logical, it's got to be clear, I've got to understand it, it's got to make sense. And that's what we spend about 99.5% of our coaching on. So when I was an entrepreneur and I was doing my pitches, We were focused on, creating this logical, analytic, data-backed, compelling argument to convince the investor beyond a shadow of a doubt that we had a brilliant startup company. But that's not good enough. It's not just about the head, you also have to address the heart, right? So we know this as human beings. We know that humans do not make decisions with their heads. We do what we want to do, not what we're supposed to do. And believe it or not, investors and customers are humans. And so this was this huge epiphany to me when I became a VC, right? So when I was an entrepreneur and I focused on the head, I thought it was all about the logical argument. And then when I became a VC, I started watching how my peers would make decisions on what to invest in. And so I would go to them and I would say, wait a second, guys, help me understand this VC thing, now that I'm one of you, right? And I said, I was going to them and saying, what's the algorithm, right? What's the analytic framework you use to figure out who to invest in? And so, the VCs would look at me and they go, well, we invest in teams. Yeah, it's about teams. I go, okay, tell me, how does that work? What's the data? What's the analytics? What's the logic? They said, well, it's kind of pattern recognition. After 5 or 10 years, you kind of get the hang of it. I'm going, you're kidding me. They pay these guys a lot of money for to learn pattern recognition after 5 or 10 years? That's how it goes? So I was watching how VCs make a decision, who to invest in. And it's kind of confusing, right? Because, you see this team and one VC loves them and another VC says, forget about it. And you thought, what does he know that the other guy doesn't know? And what I found out is that, believe it or not, the way VCs decide who to invest in is not about the logic. The way VCs decide who to invest in is, first, they fall in love. They fall in love with a company, with a team, with a technology, with a vision. They fall in love. And then they've got to have enough in their heads that they can go back to their partners and explain why they fell in love, right? But it's about falling in love. And so the epiphany I had as a VC was, it's not about the logic of your pitch. You each have got to figure out what it is about your company that is lovable. What's going to make an investor, or in a case of pitching to a customer, what's going to make them fall in love with you and want to invest the time to keep going with you? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But there's a third body part you've got to pay attention to. It's the gut. So the third body part is the gut. You've got to pass the gut check. Where were you going? Never mind. So you've got to pass the gut check, right? So every one of us, again, as human beings, we have an immediate reaction to anything we hear or anybody we meet. We have this immediate reaction. Either, we don't trust it doesn't sound credible, we don't believe them, they're blowing smoke. We have this gut reaction. And so your challenge as an entrepreneur is you've got to make sure you pass the gut check. So of those three body parts then, which do you think is the most important? Gut, heart. Heart. I think it's the heart, right? I mean, you've got to pass the gut check. You got to pass the gut check, but that's not good enough. You've got to make them fall in love. So, contrary to that, typically what we get in these elevator pitches is something like this. Coolco is a dynamic startup company that has developed a revolutionary technology that is going to disrupt our $56 billion industry. Our team has over 45 years of combined experience, and we have 3 patents pending. We project that our curve-jumping, paradigm-shifting, disruptive technology is going to transform, blah, 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 right? That's what we get, right? So that's one extreme. The other extreme a team actually walked into our office, stood up, put up their title slide, and they said this: we use a 2048 Diffie-Hellman key exchange and 256-bit triple DES to provide impenetrable encryption for IoT devices. Yes. So now, okay, this is a technical audience. So I bet you a bunch of you actually know what that means, right? So, but, most VCs, this is the reaction that we get from these kinds of pitches. And this is where you are as an entrepreneur, right? So you don't want to be here. Frequently, you don't know that you're there, right? Oh, the sky looks great. Okay. What you want to do is figure out how to get to wow. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is throw out all the stuff that pitch coaches have been teaching you and start over. So I want you to ignore the standard pitch coach wisdom. So, what do pitch coaches teach you to do? They say, start with the problem. Don't start with the problem. You don't have time to start with the problem. We know what the problem is. But most entrepreneurs, the problem, it's so easy to talk about because there's a lot of data about the problem. If you're a clean tech entrepreneur, you could talk about pollution forever, right? If you're a mobile app company, you could talk about how many smartphones there are on the planet. We don't care. We know that. Just get to the chase. A lot of pitch coaches, they tell you, start with a story. Tell a story of the founding of your company. You don't have time to tell a story unless you can tell a story in one sentence. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. The other thing, every pitch coach says, if you're going to be a unicorn, you got to show a big market. So every entrepreneur lies about how big their market is. Oh yeah, we're going at $56 billion market. Yeah, absolutely, we're going after that. So, and then everybody has their own perfect template. Just fill in the blanks, it'll be a great pitch, trust me, right? No template was designed for your specific company. You have unique challenges, you've got unique circumstances. Do not use the templates. So instead, if you do this, if you follow the pitch coach wisdom, you're not going to get to wow. What you need to figure out how to do is in the first 20 seconds of any communication you have, you may not have more than 20 seconds, but in the first 20 seconds, you've got to do three things. You've got to be clear about what you're doing. You've got to be compelling and explain to us what's the amazing benefit you provide, and you've got to be credible. We need some evidence to trust you. So be clear. Make sure we understand what you're talking about. Be compelling. Make our hearts beat faster. Be credible. Pass the gut check. So if you figure this out, if you can articulate all this in just 20 seconds, you can use this all over the place. You can use this in all the different places you have to communicate your value proposition, right? Pitching to investors, pitching to customers, it's going to be a little bit different. But, at events, when you do updates, your website, all these different things, you only have 20 seconds. So you got to get compelling in 20 seconds. So how do you do that? I'm going to give you 3 simple steps on how to get to wow. So, step 1, your first sentence should make it clear what you do. What is it that you do better than anyone else on the planet? So now most people say, we have a disruptive, transformative, curve-jumping, paradigm-shifting technology platform, right? No journalist on the planet is going to pick up that sentence and put it in the lead paragraph in your TechCrunch article. You're never going to get to TechCrunch if you do that. Right? So why don't you write the sentence that you wish a journalist would just pick up and stick into that article? Write the clear sentence that frames what you're doing in language that any reasonably smart person can do, right? Not IEEE Spectrum, right? But, a good business journalist. What's that sentence for your company? It amazes me how few entrepreneurs have that sentence. You know, you go up to an entrepreneur and you say, "What do you do?" And they kind of we got a platform technology, and it's got 6 stacks, and we have 5 different pieces, and it's available on iOS and Android, right? But you know, what's the clear sentence that you're using to explain what you can do? That's the step 1. Step 2, then, what is your compelling benefit? You know, what is your benefit in terms of faster or cheaper or lasts longer or saves money or generates revenue? And give us a metric. You know, you can't just be a little faster. You can't just be a little cheaper. You've got to be 5 times faster. You have to last 3 times longer. You've got to expand data throughput by 2.5x. So you've got to give us a compelling benefit and make it clear who realizes that benefit. Now, a way to get to this sentence is to start the sentence, "The big idea behind our company is ... What is the big idea? So that's your second sentence. And then the third sentence is, how are you different from everyone else? Because investors and customers, they've heard it all. They've heard it all. So you've got to make it clear how you're different. And the other part of credibility is you've got to make it clear that somebody really wants what you're selling. So that's the 3 steps. Be clear, compelling benefit, differentiation, credibility. Now, at this point, usually an entrepreneur raises his or her hand and says, "Hey, Bill, isn't that a template? And didn't you tell us no template?" Yes, okay. So the point is, this is a guideline, okay? And I want you to figure out what works best for you. So there are other approaches, and we're not going to talk a lot about that, but you know, if you can tell a story in 1 sentence, imagine if you had an application that did this, right? You can explain clearly what you're doing by saying imagine if. Or you can use analogies and metaphors and all those tools. You can also drop a really big name if you've got a really big name to drop. Make sure we know the really big name if you've got it to drop. There are all sorts of other approaches you can take to getting your point across, to getting us excited about what you're doing. You can figure it out and test it out with your partners and other people who are friends. So with that, some final tips. You know, make sure you keep it simple. Make sure you're customer focused. Anticipate the obvious issues. They're going to be unique to each one of you. But every one of you knows that there's always these 3 questions people ask me, you know, after I introduce myself. Well, preempt them if you can. You know, use 1 or 2 metrics. Don't give us 20 metrics. Nobody cares what this CAGR is in the subset of your market in IoT devices. But every entrepreneur is trained to put, you know, the compound annual growth rate in some complex. We don't need all those numbers. And then lastly, of course, don't lie. So, which is to say, I know you're not lying, but you might be exaggerating a little. So, you know, we have a list of top 10 entrepreneur lies on the Garage site. You can go visit. That's getting to wow. Greg helped me with the slides. If you want to learn the art of startup finance, that's available at Kaufman. If you want Guy's book in video form, Guy and I did a video course on the art of the start. And finally, if you want to get to me, you can, if you want the slides, if you want getting to wow, if you want to ask a question, or if you want to abuse me, you can get to me at Reichert@garage.com. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. So everybody, go on the hallways, find Bill, and test your pitch on him. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.